You start at $45,000 a year, entry level. You're excited. You made it out of school, you've got the job, you're building something. 2 years later, you're at $52,000. Not bad. You moved up. Another 3 years, you hit $68,000. You got promoted. New title, more responsibility, you're doing it right. By year 8, you're making $85,000. You've crushed it. You followed the script. College, career, raises, promotions, everything you were told to do. And yet, somehow, your bank account feels the same as it did at $52,000. Maybe worse. You're making 60% more than you were 5 years ago, but you don't feel 60% richer. You don't even feel 10% richer. You check your savings. It's barely grown. You look at your calendar. It's more packed than ever. You think about your options, your freedom, your ability to say no to things, and you realize something deeply uncomfortable. More money didn't give you more life. It just gave you more expensive problems. That's not bad luck. That's the salary ceiling. And here's the thing nobody tells you about the ceiling. It's not when your income stops going up. Most people never actually hit that point. You can keep getting raises for decades. You can climb from $50,000 to $150,000 over a career and never stop moving up on paper. The ceiling is something different. The ceiling is when your freedom stops increasing, when the next raise doesn't change what you can do, when more money doesn't buy you more time, more options, or more peace, when you realize you're running faster on the treadmill, but the view outside the window hasn't changed. That's the ceiling. And the brutal part is that most people don't see it coming because we're taught to measure success by income. We think the person making $120,000 has it twice as good as the person making $60,000. And on a spreadsheet, sure. But in real life, in terms of actual breathing room, actual agency, actual freedom to make choices, they're often in the exact same cage, just with nicer furniture. The ceiling isn't about the number on your paycheck. It's about what that number can actually do for you. And at some point, for most people, the answer becomes less than you'd think. Here's what makes this particularly cruel. The ceiling doesn't announce itself. There's no alarm that goes off. You just keep climbing, keep working, keep getting promoted, and one day you look around and realize that nothing fundamental has changed. You're just managing a more expensive version of the same constraints you had before. Let me show you how this plays out with an actual raise, because this is where the illusion really crystallizes. You're making $70,000 a year. You've been grinding. You get the promotion. They bump you to $85,000. That's a $15,000 raise. That sounds massive. That's more than $1,000 extra per month. You should feel it, right? Here's what actually happens. First, taxes. You're not taking home $15,000 more. You're taking home maybe $10,000 more after federal, state, and payroll taxes eat their share. And because of how tax brackets work, that extra income is taxed at your highest marginal rate. The first dollar you made got taxed at 10%. This last dollar is getting hit at 22% or 24%. So the raise feels smaller than it looks. But okay, $10,000 is still real money. $833 a month. That should make a difference. Except now you have a nicer title. And with that nicer title comes a nicer apartment, because you can't have your colleagues over to the place you had at $70,000. So rent goes up $400. You need a car that matches the role. The old one was fine when you were junior, but now you're managing people. You're client-facing. So the car payment goes up $200. You're working more hours, so you're ordering delivery twice a week instead of cooking. That's another $200. You're exhausted, so you're paying for things you used to do yourself. Laundry service, house cleaning, the lawn guy, another $150. Do the math. That $833 extra per month is already gone. And we haven't even talked about the new health insurance tier you got pushed into because your income crossed the threshold. Or the student loan interest deduction you just lost. Or the daycare subsidy that phased out. You didn't get a raise, you got an upgrade to your obligations. And the cruelest part? You can't go back. Once you're living at $85,000, dropping back to $70,000 feels like failure. The lifestyle you upgraded to isn't luxury, it's just what your life costs now. You didn't buy a yacht, you just started living like someone who makes $85,000. which means you need to keep making $85,000 forever or more. The raise didn't change your life. It just raised the floor on what you need to survive. The raise didn't make you richer. It made you more expensive to be. And here's where it gets worse. The harder you work, the tighter the trap gets. Because when you move up, you don't just get more money, you get more responsibility, more projects, more people depending on you, more emails at 9 p.m., more Slack messages on Sunday. The person making $50,000 working retail can clock out. The shift ends, they go home, their brain is free. The person making $95,000 in a salaried white-collar job never clocks out. They're always available. Always thinking about the next deadline, always slightly anxious about the thing they forgot to do. And sure, they're making more money, but they're also spending more money to manage the stress of making that money. Therapy, alcohol, vacations they're too burned out to enjoy, takeout because they don't have the energy to cook. All of it adds up. But here's the part that really gets me. The higher your salary, the more expensive your mistakes become. When you're making $45,000, you can quit a bad job and find another one without catastrophic consequences. You can take a risk. You can move cities. You can pivot. Your life is cheaper, so your decisions have lower stakes. But when you're making $95,000, you can't just quit. You've got the mortgage sized for 2 incomes. You've got the private school tuition. You've got the car leases. You've built a life that requires $95,000 to function. So even if the job is destroying you, even if your boss is a nightmare, even if you're miserable, you stay. Because walking away means everything collapses. You didn't get more freedom with that salary. You got more obligations, more leverage against you, more reasons you can't afford to make a move. The person making less has more options. You didn't climb out of anything. You just built a more expensive trap. And that's the paradox nobody warns you about. The salary you fought for, the title you earned, the income you worked a decade to reach, it didn't set you free. It just made you fragile at a higher price point. Now let's talk about the part of this that feels the most unfair. The invisible tax nobody mentions. You know how tax brackets work, right? The more you make, the higher percentage you pay. That's public information. Everyone knows that. But what most people don't realize is that the tax system isn't just taking a bigger percentage as you move up. It's also taking away benefits. And this is where the system stops pretending to be neutral. Let me show you how this works in practice. Let's say you're making $75,000 a year. You're doing fine. You've got a kid in daycare. Depending on your state, you might qualify for some kind of child care assistance or tax credit. Not much, but something. Then you get a raise. Now you're making $88,000. Congratulations. Except now your income is too high for that child care credit. You just lost $2,000 in assistance. Or, let's say you've got student loans. When you were making $70,000, you could deduct the interest. But the deduction phases out once you hit a certain income threshold. So that raise to $85,000? You just lost the ability to write off $2,500 in interest, or health insurance subsidies, or housing assistance in some cities, or eligibility for certain state programs. This is the cliff effect. You earn a little more, and you lose a lot of support. And the result is that your effective raise is way smaller than it looks on paper. But here's what makes this feel so deliberate. These cliffs aren't accidents. They're designed into the system at precise income levels. And those levels, they're exactly where most people are trying to climb. Every benefit system has a trapdoor, and it's designed to open right when you think you're getting ahead. The system isn't designed to help you build wealth in the middle. It helps you when you're struggling, and it helps you when you're rich. But if you're making $60,000 to $120,000, you're in the squeeze zone. You make too much to get help. You don't make enough to not need it. And nobody tells you this. You just feel it. You feel like you're doing well on paper, but struggling in practice. And you think it's your fault. You think you're bad at money, but you're not. You just ran into the part of the system that's designed to extract from the middle. And this is why the salary ceiling hits everyone, regardless of the number. And here's what I need you to understand. This isn't about being broke. This is about being stuck at different altitudes. I've seen people making $58,000 hit it. I've seen people making $115,000 hit it. The number is different, but the feeling is the same. The person making $58,000 is stuck because every dollar goes to survival. Rent, food, insurance, car, there's no slack. One unexpected expense and they're on a credit card. They can't save, they can't invest. They're trapped in the monthly cycle. The person making $95,000 is stuck too, just for different reasons. They've got the bigger house, the nicer car, the private school. They're making almost double, but their expenses scaled up to match. And now they're trapped by their own lifestyle. They can't downsize without feeling like they failed. They can't take a pay cut without everything falling apart. Different income, same ceiling. And the person making $115,000, they're the most frustrated of all, because they know they make good money. They know they're in the top 20% of earners, and yet they still feel like they're one bad month away from stress. They still can't retire early. They still can't take a year off. They still have to say yes to the job they don't love because they need the paycheck. The salary ceiling doesn't care what you make. It cares about the gap between your income and your obligations. And for most people, that gap never widens. It just gets more expensive to maintain. What makes this particularly isolating is that you can't talk about it. If you're making $95,000 and you tell someone you're stressed about money, they look at you like you're insane. You make 6 figures. What are you complaining about? But that's the trap. The ceiling convinces you that your struggle isn't real because your number is high. So you stop talking about it. You internalize it. You assume you're the problem. You're not the problem. You just hit the same wall as everyone else. You just hit it at a different altitude. So here's where people usually try to solve this. They start a side hustle. And look, I'm not going to tell you side hustles are bad. They're not. Extra income is real. If you can make an extra $1,000 or $2,000 a month doing something on the side, that's real money. That helps. But here's the problem. A side hustle is still trading time for money. You're just doing it twice. You work your 9 to 5. Then you come home and you work your 6 to 10. You're driving for Uber. You're doing freelance design. You're running an Etsy store. You're hustling. And yeah, you're making more money. But now you're working 60 hours a week instead of 40. And that extra $1,500 a month, after taxes, it's maybe $1,100. And you're spending $300 of that on the takeout you're buying because you don't have time to cook anymore. And another $200 on the additional gas and car maintenance from all the driving. And you're exhausted, so you're not exercising, and your health is slipping. You're making more, but your life isn't better. It's just busier. And here's the thing. The side hustle didn't break the ceiling. It just gave you a slightly taller cage, because you're still capped by time. You've still got 24 hours in a day. You can't side hustle your way to freedom if the hustle is just more hours. You can't trade time for money indefinitely, because eventually you run out of time. Side hustles don't break the ceiling. They just teach you to work in the dark. And I get it. The side hustle narrative is everywhere. Hustle culture tells you that if you're not grinding 80 hours a week, you're not serious. That if you just work harder, just do more, just sacrifice more, eventually you'll break through. But you won't. Because the problem isn't effort. The problem is the model. You're trying to solve a structural problem with individual effort, and that doesn't work. Side hustles treat the symptom. They don't fix the ceiling. So what actually breaks the ceiling? And I'm not going to sit here and give you some guru nonsense about passive income or financial freedom or escaping the matrix. That's not what this is about. But I will tell you what the difference is, because there is a difference between the person who stays stuck and the person who doesn't. The person who stays stuck is optimizing for income. They're trying to make more per hour, more per year. They're climbing the salary ladder. They're getting the raises. They're checking the boxes. The person who breaks through is optimizing for leverage. And leverage just means this. Your output isn't capped by your input. You do the work once and it pays you multiple times. You build something that doesn't require you to show up every single day to make money. That could be a lot of things. I'm not going to tell you what it is for you. But the shift is mental. It's realizing that the goal isn't more income. It's income that doesn't cap your time. It's the difference between being paid for your hours and being paid for your results. Between being paid for your presence and being paid for your output. And here's what makes this shift so hard. The entire structure of white-collar work is designed to prevent you from seeing it. Your whole career is built around showing up. Your salary is based on your availability. Your performance reviews measure how visible you are, how many meetings you attend, how responsive you are to emails. The system rewards presence, not leverage. So even when you see the ceiling, even when you understand what's happening, the path to breaking through feels invisible. Because everything around you is reinforcing the same model. Trade time for money, get the raise, climb the ladder. Most people never make that shift. Not because they're not smart enough or hardworking enough, but because the system is designed to keep you in the time for money loop. Your whole career is structured around it. Salary, benefits, raises, promotions. All of it is built to keep you trading hours for dollars. And as long as you're in that trade, you're under the ceiling. Here's the reframe. If you're making $60,000 a year and you feel like you're barely keeping up, you're not failing. You ran into the ceiling. If you're making $95,000 and you feel like you should have more breathing room but you don't, you're not bad at money. You ran into the ceiling. If you're making $120,000 and you feel trapped by your own success, like you can't quit, can't pivot, can't take a risk because everything depends on that paycheck, you're not broken. You ran into the ceiling. The ceiling is real. It's structural. It's baked into the way salary-based work functions in this economy. And the sooner you see it, the sooner you can stop blaming yourself for hitting it. You did everything right. You got the degree. You got the job. You got the raises. You played the game exactly how you were supposed to. The problem isn't you. The problem is that the game has a ceiling, and nobody warned you it was there. The most dangerous part of the salary ceiling isn't the money. It's that it convinces smart people they're the problem. And that's what I need you to hear. If you've been blaming yourself for not feeling richer despite making more, if you've been wondering why the raises don't change anything, if you've been thinking you're just bad at managing money, you're not. You're just experiencing the exact outcome the system is designed to produce. You're supposed to feel stuck. You're supposed to keep climbing. You're supposed to think the next raise will fix it. That's how the ceiling stays invisible. But now you see it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every raise, every promotion, every time someone tells you to just work harder, you'll know what's actually happening. You're not climbing out. You're just moving the ceiling higher. This channel exists to explain why money feels harder than it should and what actually matters. If this resonated, I'd appreciate you sharing it with someone who needs to hear it. If you want to know why your $30 per hour job doesn't actually pay you $30, click the left video. And if you want to know why your overtime is making you poorer, click the right video. And I'll see you there in a second.